So, dear friend, thank you for coming. It's a little friendly reunion for members of the AVA, which is the Friends of the American Veterans Association. The Friends of the American Association built all this which you see in the last 30 years, and we own the land which we purchased. And our great pride was that the US military is considering the Iron Mike Memorial as the emblematic place for D-Day, together with Pointe du Hoc. They're the two most emblematic places, and of course it's a great tribute to the 82nd Airborne. We would like to put 101st Airborne too, but they were not there. So, no, but I'm saying the truth. So anyway, we're going to. It's a very simple ceremony. Not a ceremony, it's a gathering. It's a gathering. So, et on va avoir un message qui va être lu par Madame Cathy Soref, qui est la présidente d'honneur de Operation Democracy in Locust Valley, New York. And this message was written by Colonel Keith Nightingale. So, Mrs. Cathy Soref, please.
Everyone,
Louder.
I project, Maurice, I project. It's a fantastic and emotional honor to be here today on behalf of our very dear and beloved Keith Nightingale. Colonel Nightingale and Maurice have asked me to read this speech written by Keith, which he would have given, and he would have given it extemporaneously were he here, but he's written it for me to give to you. And most definitely he will be here next year. And I just wanted to say that for Maurice and his family, the legacy of his mother and father, with a history that is never to be forgotten, is a life work, and it needs to be transferred from all of those who experienced it directly. Now that the veterans are almost gone, we have to take it into our hearts. This is what Keith wanted me to say today. Friends of liberty, friends of democracy, and friends of appreciation for the sacrifices that allow us to be here today, welcome everyone. The AVA and American Legion have dedicated and preserved this unique piece of land in perpetuity to those who claimed it for all of us in blood. Their spirit truly rests here. As we look at this seemingly insignificant country road and bridge in the peace of our land, we must reflect upon what occurred here 77 years ago. The area we now view was rent with explosions, bullets, and blood. This and the sister bridge at Chef du Pont were strategic objectives for the entire liberation effort. From the 6th to the 9th of June, lives were spent to hold this ground and expand to the other side, the ultimate road to victory. On the morning of the 9th, the airborne leadership of Generals Ridgway, General Gavin, and every numbered unit within the 82nd was determined to seize this causeway and complete their last unfulfilled mission. Led by Captain John Saul, Company G, 3rd Battalion, 325 Glider Infantry Regiment, the road was finally and permanently crossed. Of the 32 people who led the charge at 10:30, only 11 remained standing by 11 o'clock. General Ridgway and General Gavin personally led the attempts to reinforce Saul and were observed innumerable times in the heat of the battle and at great personal risk, leading the effort. Their spirit and example established the sanctity of this place. Here, close within our sight, the sacrifice and honor that resides within this monument, 254 troopers were killed and 525 wounded, paying in blood for what we now enjoy. This place is credited with being the bloodiest battle per square foot in the European theater. Within this land, the 82nd Airborne was awarded 2 Medals of Honor, 38 Distinguished Service Crosses, 271 Silver Stars, 925 Bronze Stars, and most significantly, 5,209 Purple Hearts. More than half of the entire 82nd Airborne Assault Force on D-Day. It is our honor and privilege to preserve this place of sacred honor and sacrifice. The soul of the airborne and the liberty they won for all of us resides right where we stand. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you very much. Keith Nightingale is a great writer, and he knows the history of what happened during D-Day fantastically well. As a matter of fact, I want to salute Colonel McNeil. Where is he? Dave McNeil. Okay, Dave McNeil is a partner with Colonel Nightingale to make tours with the U.S. military or the French military to show them around, and so they are together. Colonel Nightingale could not come this time because he has a little health problem. Anyway, Colonel Morgan, would you like to say make a few remarks?
I'd be honored to. Well, thank you.
Please.
Ma'am, thank you for what you just did there in reading what Colonel Retired Keith Nightingale did. So I'm going to speak in English. I will say bonjour, good morning, and then everything else will be in English. So, but that was that's really a tough a tough act to follow when you got an apple, that's rising in your throat just for the pride of who we are as paratroopers and the facts that occurred here, 77 years ago. So I'm Shane Morgan. I'm here with our Division Command Sergeant Major David Pitt and a couple of others representing, over nearly 19,000 paratroopers back at Fort Bragg, North Carolina in the 82nd. And on behalf of Major General Chris Donahue, who's our commanding general, who sends his regrets in not being able to come here for operational reasons, there would be no other reason, and that he will in turn come back later this fall. But I'll just start with this. So I checked into the 82nd Airborne Division, my first assignment. I've been there 4 times. No one's served in the 82nd longer than Command Sergeant Major Pitt, 18 years now, all of which were in the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment. And we know our history, right? Just here, I currently live in Normandy Village, so does Command Sergeant Major Pitt. As a major in the 82nd Airborne Division, I lived in Lafayette housing development area. My next door neighbor in Normandy Village is our Iron Mike at the traffic circle at Fort Bragg. But I will just share with you the history of the division. We are doing and making a concerted effort for those who follow, as Colonel Nightingale and of course, what Maurice and his parents did, but it's our obligation to carry it forward, to preserve our 82nd Airborne Division history, the airborne history, and what occurred right here. So I'm incredibly honored to be here and to represent the 82nd Airborne Division. I know we weren't able to do this ceremony for Normandy 76 because of COVID, and we're getting back to what it should be and needs to be. And so thank you for those who came today and will be here. This is my first trip. I know our history in books. I know our history in the neighborhoods that I've lived in on Fort Bragg, North Carolina, but to be here, there's no more sacred ground than what the 82nd Airborne did, here 77 years ago under the gentleman who was the deputy commander of the 82nd Airborne Division at the time, right? Lieutenant General retired James Gavin, who certainly, and if you know a thing or two about him, he ended up becoming the United States ambassador to France. So he was committed to what the 82nd Airborne Division accomplished throughout his life. Mr. Renault certainly has been committed his entire life, and it's those who follow that we're duty bound now to ensure that it continues. But on behalf of the 82nd Airborne Division and paratroopers, we're privileged to wear the maroon beret and jump boots blouse. Thank you very much, and good morning. Thanks. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So now, this is Colonel Andy Anderson. He's very well known in Fort Bragg and Fayetteville and all around the country. He's our ambassador with the American military and the veterans. So, would you like to say a word? Not more than 20 minutes, please.
I always do exactly what Maurice Renault tells me to do, right? He sends me business cards 2 years ago. Open a box that says Andy Anderson, Ambassador at Large. So, I guess I am. All right. All kidding aside, I'm honored, I'm humbled, I'm proud to be here. Tough act to follow, as Colonel Morgan says. Keith Nightingale, if you don't know him, he's quintessential. He has a voice that will project all the way to Point du Hoc. And he knows more about this place and the battles than anybody. And I'm just privileged to have learned enough about it through my 5 trips here. And it was divine intervention. My wife and I came here in 2010, divine intervention. We run into this guy named Maurice Renault at a cocktail party. Imagine that. He says, come to the town hall. We have a movie to show, a premiere. About what? My mother. What about your mother? The mother of Normandy. And it goes from there. And it's just been one incredible friend after the other we've been able to meet. Fantastic. You heard Colonel Morgan says he knows the history. Americans, we don't know our history that much. We know Gettysburg. We know these battles that shaped our history. We know know the others throughout our history, from Iwo Jima on forward and D-Day. But not many know Le Fear Bridge, right? Not many know that. And I want to quote Ronald Reagan, one of our greatest presidents, and you know his speech at Pointe du Hoc, where he's at the boys of Pointe du Hoc. Amazing speech, but he's also got some wonderful quotes, and one hits me right now. So I look over this ground, and it's hallowed ground. Uncommon valor is what we put on our Medal of Honor, right? Uncommon valor was common here from the 6th through the 9th of June. 3 days, 24 hours a day, 60 minutes of people living and dying for one reason: freedom. Freedom and liberty. And Ronald Reagan's great quote is, "Freedom is only one generation away from extinction." Think about it, one generation. For now, 4 generations, I think, we're getting old. His mother in 1946 started Friends of American Veterans, right? To keep this going. Ronald Reagan, freedom is only one generation away from extinction. We do not give it to our children in our bloodstream. It is not automatic. It doesn't pass from DNA to DNA. It has to be fought for. It has to be planned. It has to be educated. And it has to be carried forward with passion and commitment and determination. And nowhere, I don't think, that I know of, that determination and passion is better manifested than in this family called the Renaults, right? Starting with Simone Renault, the mother of Normandy, right? Alexander Renault, the mayor on June 6, 1944. The Germans were about ready, they're about tired of him and his passive aggressiveness, right? He was an amazing machine gunner from World War I. He knew what combat was like. He was the mayor here. They were about ready to get rid of him. And then here come the 82nd parachute. And the rest is history. So to finish up with Reagan, he says, we've got to continue to teach that history. We need to do it in America. You do it better here than anywhere I've ever seen. So I just would like to say, from one American to another Frenchman, I say thank you, I salute you, I say God bless America, and vive la France.
Okay, now the historian who knows very well the Battle of La Fière, Colonel McNeil, retired now, but he is going to give you a little briefing on exactly what happened there.
I just got volunteered for this. Like you said, bonjour, everything else will be in English here for me today. I've been very fortunate to come here. This is my 42nd time to be here since 1984. Bravo. And one of the most fortunate things is my ability that I've had to walk these grounds with the veterans and hear from them their stories and what they say happened here. But I'll tell you something I've learned in these 37 years of studying history and reading the books and listening to the veterans. What really happened on any battlefield, you never really know for sure. I mean, I've even come out to some of these places with 2 or 3 of the veterans, and every one of them had a little different memory of what happened, okay? And there's a famous saying in the military is your view of the battlefield depends on where your foxhole is. And so people just a few meters from each other may have seen things differently, but I'll try to give you a very short brief of this area. Normally when Keith and I talk about it, we speak for about an hour and a half because there's so much information. But if you look at these fields all the way out here, on D-Day, this was water. This was like a lake. The Germans had intentionally stopped the floodgates to allow the river to flow out into the ocean to intentionally create a barrier to keep, first and foremost, to limit mobility for armored vehicles and troops moving, and then second, to cause difficult for paratroopers. So you have to imagine between here and the buildings, everything is water. And on that morning of the 6th of June, approximately 38 paratroopers drowned in the water and never got past that point, which is very sad. Unfortunately for our intelligence, we did not realize that there was water out here because the reeds were growing up through to the top of the water, and the aerial photographs looked like it was just soggy, wet, but not deep in water. So in that morning, there were three strategic objectives for the 82nd. The town of St. Mary-Glise itself, this bridge, and the bridge at Chef DuPont. The 82nd in this area had 3 drop zones. One directly behind us, and this was the 505th drop zone. And then across on the other side of the Monterey River was the 507th drop zone, and then furthest way is the 508th drop zone. And the mission of the 505th was to capture the town of St. Mary-Glise, secure it, and to capture this bridge. The 508's mission was to capture the bridge at Chef DuPont, and then the 508th and the 507th were supposed to secure beyond the Monterey River, this entire area. And the intent was to secure these key crossing points so that all the ground forces coming from the beach invasion could eventually get here. The bridges would not be destroyed by the Germans, and then they could continue on. Because the whole purpose of this invasion in this area was the key objective, strategic objective of Cherbourg. We needed the port at Cherbourg to bring in all of the massive logistic supplies to support the movement across France to free France and then to go into Germany and to finally close the war. So this battle in here was in order to get a foothold to continue across the peninsula to get to Cherbourg, to capture Cherbourg. So in the morning of the 6th, the 505th immediately secured their objective in the town of St. Mary-Glise. They immediately came down here and started clearing out the buildings here. Germans had not been in this building until just a few days before. Through the whole 4 years of the occupation, they had not occupied this, but just before the occupation they did. So the soldiers were able to initially clear out here and provide soldiers dug in along here the morning of the 6th. And then what transpired over the next 3 days was a continual fighting for the bridge and the causeway. The units that were here, starting with Alpha Company at 1505, held this bridge area under tremendous pressure from the Germans with artillery and mortars and armored vehicle attacks across the bridge and massive infantry attacks. And the machine guns across the other side of the water were all pounding on the guys here as well. The bottom line was they continued to hold it from the German counterattacks, but we didn't have the ability to get across the bridge and take it as we needed to until the morning of the 9th of June. By this time, there were so many forces coming up from the beach, they were beginning to get stagnated where they couldn't get across to do their mission, so we had to have that mission done. And that morning at 10:30 was the final assault that involved virtually every unit in the 82nd that made the assault across the bridge from 10:30 to 11 o'clock. After 3 days of fighting in 30 minutes, they finally made it across to the other side. Once they got across, and we had talked, Keith had talked earlier in his notes about how General Gavin and Ridgway were both key leading up front, helping to fight the battle here at the bridge, getting soldiers and equipment and people sent across. So finally, at 11 o'clock on the 9th of June, after 3 days, this area has finally been secured, and then the 4th ID forces and the 90th ID forces were able to move across and continue on. Thank you.
So, last but not least, Father Flores from Arkansas.
Nebraska.
Nebraska. Nebraska.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Bonjour. It is a privilege and an honor to be here today. This will be the first time in many years that I've been coming here to be here on a Sunday, which also is D-Day. Now,
Donc,
go ahead.
José Flores, c'est un pasteur du Nebraska. il dit qu'il a le privilège et l'honneur d'être ici aujourd'hui, que ce n'est pas la première fois qu'il est venu en Normandie et qu'il vient depuis quelques années maintenant.
You may wonder why this small man wearing a uniform has to do with this gathering today.
Vous vous demandez peut-être ce que ce petit homme avec cet uniforme vient faire ici aujourd'hui.
It has nothing to do with the fact that my family has 3 generations of soldiers in it.
Ah, ça n'a rien à voir avec le fait que ma famille a 3 générations de soldats ici.
My grandfather served with Blackjack Pershing in World War I.
Son grand-père a servi avec les dans la Première Guerre mondiale.
My father was in the Army Air Corps, flying missions over the battlefield here.
Son père était dans les armées Air Force. Il volait autour des batailles, des champs de bataille ici.
This is for you.
Yes, for your
It's a
father.
sign from mom.
The Chinese are coming.
Yeah. I myself, the 3rd generation,
Moi, la 3e génération,
served mostly with airborne troops of 82nd, 101st, I know, and 509.
j'ai servi pour la plupart avec des troupes de la 101e, de la 82 et la 509.
But actually, the reason I'm here has nothing to do with that. The reason I am here has nothing to do with my history.
Mais la raison pour laquelle il est ici aujourd'hui n'a rien à voir avec l'histoire.
The reason that I'm here today with you
La raison pour laquelle je suis ici aujourd'hui
has to do with a spirit that connects all 3 of those wars, World War I, II, Korea, you name the wars, even up to the present.
La raison, c'est par un esprit qui est partagé pendant les 3 générations. La première, la deuxième et la sienne.
As paratroopers landed on D-Day here on these hallowed grounds,
Quand les parachutistes sont arrivés ici sur ces champs de bataille,
they came with a spirit of not only knowing that they are right in their quest to free Europe,
ils sont venus avec non seulement l'esprit, non seulement l'idée de savoir que ce qu'ils faisaient était bien,
they also came knowing that they are right with their God.
mais ils sont aussi venus avec l'idée qu'ils étaient en accord avec leur Dieu.
The Spirit of God was with them, and that's why we won.
L'Esprit de Dieu était avec eux et c'est pour cela que nous avons gagné.
And so as we commemorate today what happened 77 years ago,
Et donc aujourd'hui, pendant que nous commémorons ce qui s'est passé ici,
we can also thank our God that He was with us.
nous pouvons aussi remercier notre Dieu qu'il était avec nous.
When I retired from the U.S. Army,
Quand
J'ai pris ma retraite.
j'ai pris ma retraite de l'armée,
I became a pastor, a priest in God's army.
je suis devenue un prêtre dans l'armée de Dieu.
And so I am here with that spirit in mind, knowing that what happened 77 years ago
Et donc je suis ici avec cet esprit et de ce qui s'est passé ici,
needs always to be remembered.
que ça a besoin d'être toujours commémoré et souvenu.
And needs always people to give thanks to God
Et il y aura toujours besoin d'avoir des gens qui remercient Dieu
for the freedoms that were won in that campaign to free Fortress Europe.
pour la liberté qui a été
Libéré de la forteresse.
merci
So I ask you just for a moment
Donc je vous demande pour
a moment of silence
un moment de silence
to thank our God for what He allowed the 82nd and the U.S. Army and the Canadians and the British and the French forces to accomplish on D-Day 1944. Amen.
Le jour de gloire est arrivé, contre nous de la tyrannie, l'étendard sanglant élevé, l'étendard sanglant élevé. Entendez-vous dans nos campagnes, ces féroces soldats, ils viennent jusque dans nos bras, égorger nos fils et nos compagnes. Aux armes, citoyens, formez vos bataillons. Marchons, marchons, qu'un sang impur abreuve de nos sillons.
Alors maintenant, cette charmante demoiselle de Madrid, en Espagne, va nous jouer deux morceaux de violon. Rocío. Rocío. le morceau que vous allez entendre, c'est son frère qui l'a écrit.
The original composition of your brothers, can you play?
Una más, por favor.
One more.
Rocio, this is an original composition of her brothers. And Rocio is studying for her PhD, and she's done much research on music and the role that it played during the Holocaust.
Wow.
C'était le point final à notre réunion que j'ai trouvé très sympathique. Je sais pas comment vous l'avez trouvé. Enfin, c'était sympa. Informal, tout improvisé, c'est ce qu'il faut. Donc voilà, écoutez, on a terminé et bon, vous savez ce qu'il vous reste à faire. J'espère. I hope so. All right. Thank you very much.